Hello everyone, I am Jefferson P. Quiñones from BPEd A, and now I'll be going to discuss to you the rules of frisbee or ultimate. Ultimate is a 7-a-side team sport played with a flying disc. It's played on a rectangular field about half the width of a football field with an end zone at each end. The objective of each team is to score a goal by having a player catch a pass in the end zone that they are attacking. A thrower may not run with the disc but may pass the disc in any direction to any teammate. Spirit of the game. Ultimate is non-contact, self-officiated sport. All players are responsible for administering and adhering to the rules. Ultimate relies upon a spirit of the game that places the responsibility for fair play on every player. Players should be mindful of the fact that they are acting as referees in any arbitration between teams. So player must first know the rules. Second is be fair-minded and objective. Be truthful. Explain their viewpoint clearly and briefly. Allow opponents a reasonable chance to speak. 6 is to consider their opponent's viewpoint. 7. Use respectful words and body language with consideration of potential cultural differences. 8 is to resolve disputes as quickly as possible. 9. Make calls in a consistent manner throughout the game. And 10. Only make a call where a breach is significant enough to make a difference to the outcome of the action. The following actions are examples of good spirit. First is retracting a call when you no longer believe the call was correct. Second, checking in with an opponent on the sideline after a contentious interaction. Third is complimenting an opponent for good play or spirit. Fourth is introducing yourself to your opponent. And 5, reacting calmly towards disagreement or provocation. The following actions are clear violations of the spirit of the game and must be avoided. First is dangerous play and aggressive behavior. Second, intentional fouling or other intentional rule breaches. Third, taunting or intimidating opposing players. Fourth, celebrating disrespectfully after scoring. 5. Making calls in retaliation on an opponent's call. 6 is calling for a pass from an opposition player. And 7. Other win at all cost behavior. Teams are guardians of the spirit of the game and must first take responsibility for teaching their players the rules and good spirit. Second, discipline teammates who display poor spirit. Third, provide constructive feedback to other teams about what they are doing well and or how to improve their adherence to the spirit of the game and And fourth, call a spirit stoppage to address spirit issues as appropriate. An experienced player who offers advice on rules and guides on field arbitration may supervise games involving beginners or younger players. Calls should be discussed by the players directly involved in the play and by players who had the best perspective on the play. So, this is the court of frisbee or ultimate. Ito ang playing field nila. Yan. Next is the equipment. First is any flying disc acceptable to both captains may be used. Second, WFDF may maintain a list of approved discs recommended for use. Third, each player must wear a uniform that distinguishes their team. Fourth, no player may wear items of clothing or equipment that reasonably could harm the wearer or other players or impede an opponent's ability to play. Point, goal, and game. First, a game consists of a number of points. Each point ends with the scoring of a goal. A game is finished and won by the first team to score 15 goals. A game is separated into two periods of play called halves. Half time occurs when a team first scores 8 goals. The first point of each half starts when the half starts, after a goal is scored and the game has not been won or halftime has not been reached. The next point starts immediately. The team switch the end zone that they are defending, and the team that scored becomes defense and pulls next. Each team will put a maximum of 7 players and a minimum of 5 players on the field during each point. Each team must designate a captain and a spirit captain to represent the team. A team may make unlimited substitutions after a goal is scored and before their team signals readiness for the pool. Starting a game. First is representatives of the two teams fairly determine which team first chooses either whether to receive or throw the initial pool or which end zone they will initially defend. The other team is given the remaining choice. At the start of the second half, these initial selections are switched. At the start of the game, after halftime or after a score, play commences with a throw by the defense called a pull. Teams must prepare for the pull out unreasonable delay. The pull may be made only after both teams have signaled their readiness by having the puller and the player on offense raise a hand above their head. After signaling readiness, all offensive players must stand with one foot on their defending goal line without changing location relative to one another until the pull is released. After signaling readiness, all defensive players must keep their feet entirely behind the vertical plane of the goal line until the pull is released. State of a play. Play is dead and no turnover is possible. After the start of a point until the pull is released, when a disc must be carried to the pivot location after the pull or a turnover until pivot point is established. After a call which stops the play or any other stoppage until the disc is checked in or after a disc hits the ground until possession is established by the appropriate team. Players are allowed to move during dead play unless specified otherwise. Stall account. The marker administers a stall account on the thrower by announcing stalling and then counting from 1 to 10. The interval between the start of each number in the stall count must be at least 1 second. The stall count must be clearly communicated to the thrower. The marker may only start and continue a stall count when play is live or until a pivot is established after a turnover. They are within 3 meters of the thrower's pivot point or the pivot location if the thrower is not at that location, and all defenders are legally positioned. Section 8. The check. Whenever play stops during a point for a foul, violation, contested turnover, specified turnover, contested goal, stoppage, excursion, or at the completion of a timeout, play must start as quickly as possible with a check. The check may only be delayed for discussion of a call. The entire playing field is in bounds. The perimeter lines are not part of the playing field and are out of bounds. All non-players are part of the out of bounds area. The out of bounds area consists of the ground which is not in bounds and everything in contact with it, except for defensive players who are always considered in bounds. Receivers and positioning. A catch occurs when a player has non-spinning disc trapped between at least two body parts. A catch can enable a player to establish position of the disc. If the player fails to maintain the catch due to subsequent ground contact related to the catch or contact related to the catch with a teammate or a legitimately positioned opposition player, possession is deemed to have not occurred. A turnover that transfers position of the disc from one team to the other occurs when the disc contacts the ground while it is not in the possession of an offensive player. However, it is not down if a receiver catches a pass before the disc contacts the ground and maintains the catch while the disc is in contact with the ground. Scoring. A goal is scored if an inbounds player catches a legal pass and all their ground contacts are entirely within their attacking end zone, or for an airborne player, all of their first simultaneous points of ground contact after catching the disc are entirely within their attacking end zone, and they subsequently establish position of the disc and maintain the catch throughout all ground contact related to the catch. Calling fouls, infractions, and violations. A breach of the rules due to non-minor contact between two or more opposing players is a foul. A player intentionally initiating minor contact is still a breach of the rules but is to be treated as a violation and not a foul. 15.2 A breach of the rules regarding a marking or travel breach is an infractions do not stop play. Every other breach of the rules is violation. Only the player fouled may claim a foul by calling foul. In general, only the thrower may claim an infraction by calling the specific name of the infraction. However, any offensive player may call a double team and any defensive player may call a travel infraction. Continuation of the call. Whenever a foul or violation call is made or a player attempts to stop play in any way, play stops immediately and no turnover is possible unless in situations specified in 15.9, 16.2, and 16.3. If a foul or violation is called against a thrower and the thrower attempts a pass or is called by the thrower during the act of throwing, or is called or occurs when the disc is in the air, then play continues until position has been established. Once position has been established, so let's talk about fouls. First is dangerous play. First is action demonstrating reckless disregard for the safety of fellow players or posing significant risk of injury to fellow players, or other dangerously aggressive behaviors are considered dangerous play and must be treated as a foul regardless of whether or when contact occurs. This rule is not superseded by any other foul rule. If the dangerous play call is accepted, this must be treated as the most relevant foul from section 17. Receiving fouls. A receiving foul occurs when a player initiates non-minor contact with an opponent before, while, or directly after either player makes a play on the disc. Strip fouls. A strip foul occurs when an opponent fouls a player and that causes the player to drop a disc they cut or to lose possession of the disc. Blocking fouls. A blocking foul occurs when a player takes a position that an opponent moving in a legal manner will be unable to avoid, taking into account the opponent's expected position based on their established speed and direction, and non-minor contact results. Forced out fouls. A forced out foul occurs when a receiver is in the process of establishing position of the disc and is fouled by a defensive player before establishing position and the contact caused the receiver. Defensive throwing or marking fouls. A defensive throwing foul occurs when a defensive player is illegally positioned, section 18.1, and there is non-minor contact between the legally positioned defensive player and the thrower, and the thrower. Offensive throwing or thrower fouls. An offensive throwing foul occurs when the thrower is solely responsible for initiating non-minor contact with a defensive player who is in a legal position. Indirect fouls. An indirect foul occurs when there is a minor contact between a receiver and a defensive player that does not directly affect an attempt to make a play on the disc. Offsetting fouls. If accepted fouls are called by offensive and defensive players on the same play, these are offsetting fouls and the disc must be returned to the last non-disputed thrower. Safety stoppages. Injury stoppage. An injury stoppage or injury may be called by the injured player or by any player on the injured player's team. If the injury was not caused by an opponent, the player must choose either to be substituted or to change their own team with a timeout. Timeouts. The player calling a timeout must from a tee with their hands or with one hand and the disc and should call timeout to opposition players. So that's all. Thank you.